Miss Anderson, my EL kids are saying hi to you.
Hi, good morning, everybody. Buenos dias. Let me turn it
Wave
up.
at that screen. Wave at that one.
Is there anybody that's not that I can't see on the camera? Because I can see up to Juan Carlos. I can see
The
Marcela.
cafeteria people on that side. Oh, thank you, Sophia. I'm sorry. I was trying to get this ready. See, Miss Anderson, you got me in trouble.
I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Is
Oh,
my
I've been. Go ahead.
is Yamilet in today by chance?
Yeah,
Okay.
she's the one saying hi to you.
Yay. Hi, Yamilet. I see you in the back. This is exciting. Your guys' first guest is a pilot, which is pretty amazing.
What?
I know. You guys are so lucky.
A pilot?
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out what's going on with him. I'm gonna put myself on mute really quick. I'm gonna call and see if we can call this person. They might be having trouble. Oh, and one thing, Mr. Amaya, that questions regarding questions, I don't know if you want to field them depending on how much time we have, especially since we're starting a little late. So if you want to kind of gauge some questions towards the end.
Yeah. So what I'll do is, at the end they'll tell me, and I'll just relay it to the presenter. That way, we don't have all that muffledness.
Right. Okay, cool.
Hello, everybody.
Good morning. Thank you so much.
Sorry about the mix-up on the time. My message says 9:30, so I thought maybe things had shifted. I'm here
Oh,
now. Hello, everybody. Hello, class. How you guys doing? Nice to see you all. Very nice. We're
thank
ready.
you so much for being here. This is Mr. Amaya's fifth grade class. I'm
Okay.
Mrs. Anderson. I work with special projects here at Kornblum, and I'm going to go ahead and let you introduce yourself.
Okay. Everybody, my name is Mike Crider, and I had my entire life, my career has been as a pilot. So I understand there might be some of you that are thinking about maybe wanting to become a pilot in the future. So what my intent is to tell you why it's the best career in the world. I absolutely had a blast. It's fun. I miss it terribly now that I'm retired. So um, I uh, I started flying way back in 1969, and let me bring up. I have a little presentation I want to show you guys. Hang on one second. There we go. Okay, so got to make it work here. There it goes. So first, we're going to talk a little bit about me because I did have the career as a pilot, and I'd like to show you guys what I've been able to do in 50 years of flying. I am a little bit unique. Different than most pilots is that I did not concentrate on just one segment of aviation. I'm a helicopter pilot. I flew for Life Flight Air Medical Service. I flew for corporations. I've flown small jets, turboprops, uh, 15 or 16 different types of helicopters. And I ended up retiring from Southwest Airlines as an airline pilot. So I've kind of experienced about every corner of aviation, including military. I spent 8 years flying Army helicopters. So I'm going to go chronologically through my career kind of quickly, just to give you an idea of what it's like to be a pilot, and then we'll talk a little bit about you and about what you need to do or think about at this point if you maybe want to be a pilot in the future. So, and then after we finish all of that, for about 10 minutes or so, I'll open things up for questions. And we can answer any questions you might have about this career. First of all, can everybody hear me okay? Is audio good? You see the video? Okay, excellent. Okay, so let's get started here. What do I love about being a pilot? First of all, beyond everything else, it's fun, and I like having fun. In fact, it's been never been boring. I have, from the time I started flying until I retired 2 years ago, I never had more than a 2 week period where I was unemployed. And this in the future is going to be even more important. I just saw the latest statistics this morning that they are predicting a pilot shortage. They need 243,000 new pilots in the next 10 years to keep the airlines operating. So this is a very good career to get into right now. The pay in the airline end of it has gone up to the point now the average airline captain makes between $300,000 and $500,000 per year. It's quite good pay. Even on the other end of the spectrum, flying small airplanes and helicopters, you can expect to make somewhere between $100,000 and $200,000 a year once you get past the training and get some experience. So uh, financially, it's a very, very smart thing to do. But what's more important than money to me is enjoying the job. And I, you don't know yet if you haven't flown an airplane whether or not this is for you. I'll tell you what happened to me is that I took an airplane ride back in 1969 because I was doing jobs I didn't enjoy, and I fell in love with this experience. And at that moment on, I always wanted to be a pilot, and I did accomplish that. You don't know that until you try it. So at some point when you're a little older, you're 16, 17 years old, you can talk your parents into taking you to the nearest airport, go to Long Beach Airport, they'll give you a free ride. It's kind of an introductory flight on what it's like to be a pilot, and you will know after that first flight. You'll probably know if this is for you. If you really like it, and most people do, I think this could be a career path for everyone. It doesn't matter, girls, boys. I've flown with many female pilots, and they're just as successful as the guys, and they make just the same amount of money. It's actually quite good. So the other thing about being a pilot, you get to fly. There's nothing in the world feels as good to me as being able to control a big machine. This airliner I flew at Southwest carried 180 people, weighed 200,000 pounds, yet the controls are so balanced and so light, and to be able to control this big, massive machine safely, it's a wonderful feeling. It really is. And even maybe even more fun than flying the airplane was flying the helicopters. Those are absolutely the funnest thing you can ever do. It's absolutely incredible. Other thing about being a pilot is you're always learning. You have to learn constantly. You have to try to get better and better. As time goes on, you have to fly different types of airplanes. So when you do, you have to learn about that airplane. It's called a type rating. That you go to school on a specific airplane, how to fly it. And this is an ongoing process throughout your career. If you like learning, and you better like learning, if you want to be a pilot, then if you don't like learning and studying, then it's not the career for you, because you always constantly striving to learn more. You work with amazing people throughout your career. You fly with different pilots every day. You fly with flight attendants on the airplane. You fly company executives in the corporate world. You might fly linemen. I flew for Southern California Edison for a while, flying line patrol with the helicopters. And you just work with amazing people. You get to travel. The, the airline puts you in very nice hotels. They pay for all of your meals. Sometimes resorts that you go to. You travel sometimes all over the world, and certainly all over the United States, depending on what airline you actually end up flying for. So the let's see, next thing here. So the way I started out, and the way you will probably start out also, is you have to get some experience. To get into the airlines requires a minimum of 1,500 flight hours. To get a commercial pilot's license takes a minimum of 250 hours. How do you get from that 250 hours to the 1,500 hours to be employable by a commuter airline? It's called a flight instructor. So after you get 250 hours of your initial training, which took me about 2 years, then I got my flight instructor's license. Then I was hired by the same school that trained me to be an instructor. From that day forward, I was paid to fly. I no longer had to pay for the flying. Big deal. So I flew for several years as a flight instructor, building my flight time. And I got up to about 1,000 hours, and then I discovered something new that really also grabbed me. I got my first helicopter ride. One of my friends took me for a ride in a helicopter, and I love that even more than flying the airplane. So the only way that I could see to learn to fly helicopters was go into the military. So I talked to the U.S. Army. I joined the U.S. Army, went to Army Flight School, and became a military pilot. These are the two types of aircraft I flew, the UH-1, the Huey, and the OH-58 Kiowa Scout. And I flew these aircraft for 8 years in the military. I was in Korea. I spent 3 years in Fort Hood, Texas, Fort Ord, California for several years. So I spent my 8 years in the Army building my experience. When I got enough experience to be employable in the civilian world, then I left the military, came back to the civilian world as a commercial helicopter pilot. I worked for various companies, Ammon Oil Company in Huntington Beach. I used to fly to the offshore platforms that you can see right off of Huntington Beach, platform Emma and platform Eva. They have helipads on them, and my job was to shuttle the crews out to the platforms, bring them in back and forth at crew change. So I was very busy flying the Jet Ranger. That's that blue helicopter, one of my favorites. It's a jet-powered Bell 206 Jet Ranger. And the one next to it is the Hughes 500. Now, that Hughes 500 is the Porsche of helicopters. That thing is maneuverable and very, very fun to fly. I flew that aircraft for many different companies, including Southern California Edison. So after I did the commercial helicopter thing for a while, I was trying to make a little more money. Of course, as your career progresses, you make more and more money as you get more experience. So I applied and finally got hired by Loma Linda Air Medical Service out in Loma Linda, California. At that time, they had 3 helicopters and an airplane, and I was hired to be one of the pilots. And I flew for Loma Linda for 2 years until they shut the program down. They canceled the program, and I was then unemployed for 2 days. I called up University of California, San Diego, UCSD Life Flight, and they hired me immediately. And I started commuting to San Diego, and that's me on these 2 pictures you're looking at now. The right hand side, that little guy right there on the right hand side, that was me back in my younger days when I had hair. So, but that was a Bell 222, one of my very favorite helicopters. They sent me to school to learn how to fly that helicopter, and I spent about a year flying for UCSD Life Flight. I landed on highways. We did mountain rescues. It's constantly going to emergencies and saving lives. We save many, many lives in life flight. That's a very satisfying way to make a living. Today, it pays a lot better. There are people today that do that for their entire career. When I was doing it, the pay was quite minuscule, so I had to go on to something else eventually. So then I got a job with a Hughes Aircraft Company out of Van Nuys, flying once again the Bell 222 helicopter, one of my very favorites. It's twin engine, retractable landing gear, extremely fast, maneuverable, and can fly in all types of weather. The right-hand picture is the cockpit of the 222, what it looks like inside that machine. So I flew for Hughes for a little over a year. I had to commute to Van Nuys from Rialto, a very bad drive, as you guys know. And so I was trying to get on with another company, Southern California Edison, and they're hard to get on. I finally did get hired by them. I spent 10 years flying for Southern California Edison, doing power line patrol, VIP transport. They had 7 helicopters and 3 different airplanes. And I was current and flew all of those aircraft. So that was a very interesting time in my career. I was always studying, trying to stay current on all these different aircraft. Some of the helicopters we flew, you see the one on the left there, that's a A-Star. It's a French-made helicopter, very fast, maneuverable. Edison had 2 of those. Once again, the Hughes 500, that's me standing by a lineman up in the mountains of Big Creek, and we were doing line patrol that day, and I got that picture. And then we also flew, once again, the Bell 222. I flew that aircraft for 10 years for 3 different companies. It's my favorite helicopter. Then he also had some airplanes. So this is when I transitioned back to airplanes and started flying corporate jets. And I flew the Cessna Citation. That's that little jet on the left there. We flew that daily. That thing went all over California, to Sacramento frequently, short range, less than 1,000-mile trips, very fast, very sleek airplane. We also had a King Air. The King Air 200 is a turboprop, very efficient. It's the advantage of the turboprop, it burns less fuel. So we had the King Air 200, and then the airplane next to that, is the Lockheed Jetstar. That was an amazing machine that I flew for 8 years. It's got 4 engines. It's the only 4-engine airplane I actually ever flew, and I really, really loved it, made by Lockheed. That was an amazing aircraft. I would have stayed there for my entire career, except Edison shut down the flight department. They shut down the fixed wing part of it. So I had the choice to go back to helicopters only or move on to something else. So I started looking around, and I discovered this airline, Vanguard, out in Kansas City, was just getting started. So I got into the 3rd class of pilots at Vanguard. I moved myself to Kansas City to fly for them, and I learned to fly the Boeing 737. Boeing makes wonderful airplanes. So I flew that with them for a couple of years, trying to get into a major airline that had a lot better pay. And I finally succeeded getting hired by Southwest Airlines. That was one of the happiest days of my life when I got the call from Southwest to go to work, because that is known throughout the industry as the best company to work for in the world. It is incredible. Their pay is very good. Their benefits are wonderful. The people they hire, as you know, if you've flown Southwest, the flight attendants have a great personality. It's just a wonderful company. So I spent 26 years with Southwest Airlines, 10 years flying, actually 13 years flying the airplanes. And then when I had to retire at age 60, that was a problem back in those days. To be a pilot, the airline pilot, you were forced to retire at age 60. It's a very young age to have to retire. So I hit age 60, could no longer fly, and I talked the company into keeping me on as an instructor. So I then, for 10 more years, worked for Southwest as a simulator instructor, flight instructor out of Fort Love Field in Dallas. That picture on the left is their training center. That's just a picture of, they've got 14 of these big, giant, full motion simulators that you would be amazed. You get in one of those things, and it's just like flying the airplane. I mean, we can do all the training required of the pilots of Southwest using simulation. Then they just go to work out on the line flying people. It's so accurate, the simulation. The picture on the right is me in the light blue shirt with a couple of my students. Typically, I would train 2 pilots at a time, and we would do training in the classroom, then go into the simulator for 4 or 5 hours. So, but I did that for, like I say, 10 years. So that was basically, in a nutshell, my 50 years of flying, what it entailed. And let's talk about you a little bit. If you want to be a pilot in the future, I know that you're quite young. Most of you are certainly probably too young to make a career decision yet. But put this in the back of your mind. This is one of the very best careers, and it will continue to be so going into the future. So what can you do now? You can't really start doing flight training until you're 16 as a minimum. You can't get the first rating until you're 17. That's the private pilot rating. You can't become an airline pilot rated, called the ATP, the Airline Transport Pilot Rating, until you're 21. So now what you can do is buckle down and work really hard in school. Do the very best you can right now. Do well. Take technical classes when you get a chance. Mathematics, science, the more you know about technical things, the more successful you'll be as an airline pilot. Because you study these mechanical machines that are quite complex throughout your career, and having a good solid background in technology would be very useful for you. Another thing, dream big, guys. Don't settle for. Don't let anybody tell you that you can't do something like this, because you can. Dream big, and you really can do it. It can be done. Probably the fastest way to become an airline pilot is to attend one of the professional pilot degree programs. And here's a few of them. I went to Mount San Antonio College out in Walnut, right there in your area. It's to have a real good 2-year degree program, an associate degree in professional pilot. There's another one called Spartan College. That's a bachelor's degree program. And one of the best flight schools in the country right now is right next to you guys, just at the Long Beach Airport, called the ATP Long Beach Flight School. It's an incredible school for flight training, one of the very best. One of the issues with flight training is it's kind of expensive. There are ways you can finance it. You can get government help to help pay for it, but it will cost money. In fact, for me to get my first paying job took me 2 years because I could only fly an hour or 2 a week. It's all I could afford. I paid as you went. It took me a while, but you can get lots of financial help. It's less expensive than certainly going to medical school or something like that, and the pay is just as good or better. So it has a very bright future. Like I said, there's a big pilot shortage in all areas: helicopter pilots, instructor pilots, airline pilots. There is a massive shortage. Everybody's retiring, and there's just not enough young people going into it. Now, the thing about being an airline pilot, most airlines require a bachelor's degree to be able to fly. They don't all. Southwest does not. Southwest requires an associate degree, and that's all. But getting a bachelor's degree will be very useful for you. And just in case this career doesn't work out, having other things that you can do to fall back on is also quite a good idea. So here's some things you might be interested in besides being an airline pilot. You can be a flight instructor. That will be your first job. Today, that career pays well enough that you can do that for your entire career and be quite happy. If you like teaching, other people how to do skills that you have, then flight instructing is. And there's a big shortage of flight instructors. They're just because everybody moves on to to something else as they progress, and so there's always a shortage in flight instructors. Helicopter pilot, that's most fun of all. So expensive to be trained that really the only practical way to get into the helicopter pilot field is to join the military, especially the U.S. Army. They are the masters of helicopter training. I had an absolute blast. I really, really enjoyed my time in the U.S. Army. You can be a corporate helicopter pilot, corporate airplane pilot. You can be an air ambulance pilot, helicopters and airplanes. And you can also be a government pilot, such as firefighters and stuff. So there's so many things you can do as a pilot. So that's kind of how that stands. So there's one other way. Did anybody see Top Gun yet? Anybody seen it yet? Raise your hand if you've seen Top Gun. I don't. You guys need to go see that movie. What's wrong with you guys? It's absolutely incredible movie, but it shows what it's like to be a Navy aviator. So one of the things you can do is go right out of high school, go to the college of your choice, get your bachelor's degree. You can do it in 4 years or sometimes 3, and then go join the military. Take the entrance test. If you pass it, you can go into the Navy, the Air Force, Marines, or the Army. If you go into the Air Force or the Navy or Marines flying jet airplanes, by the time you get ready to leave the military, you'll have your choice of airlines. Everybody will want to hire you. You'll be a very valuable commodity. I would think that today, well over half of the airline pilots are trained by the military. Like, question?
Hi, really
Candace?
quick. We have 3 minutes left. I want to make sure we give the kids an opportunity to
Oh,
ask
well, absolutely. In
questions.
fact, I'm all done. So let's go ahead and open it up for questions. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good morning, Mr. Crider. Thank you for being here.
Hi, George.
So one of my students has a question. What inspired you to be a pilot?
Okay, here's briefly. I was in the Army one time. I got drafted back in 1966 during the Vietnam War. I didn't fly. I just put 2 years and got out. Then I was searching for something. I could not find the job I wanted. I was working as a welder at Hooker Headers, and one of my fellow employees took me for an airplane ride. And I went up in this Cessna 150 and fell in love with it. So it was my first experience in a little airplane that lit my fire and made me want to go forward. Any more
Another
questions?
student wanted, yes, another student had a question. Have you ever um, had an accident dealing with flying or anyone that you know
I
that might have
have
had an
not.
accident?
Okay, let me stop the presentation so I can see you guys better. Hang on 1 second here. My mouse working. Uh-oh. What was that? My mouse is lost. Okay, there you go. Sharing. Okay. So, no, I've been very fortunate. I have 26,000 hours of flying in 50 years, and I've never had an accident. It's just, you shouldn't. If you do things the way you should do them and listen to your training and use good common sense, there's no reason you should ever have to have an aircraft accident. It is not a dangerous profession. Military could be. If people are shooting at you, that's certainly dangerous. But flying aircraft in general, if they're properly maintained, it's a very safe career. Any more questions?
Another question is, have you traveled, how many places have you traveled to and what's your favorite?
I've been to every state in the United States with Southwest Airlines, everywhere. And of course, I've also spent a year flying in Korea, and I've flown airplanes to Hawaii, to Europe. But my favorite is the United States of America, and I like some of the cities in the U.S. are absolutely gorgeous. This is a wonderful country to live in, and you get to see it all. If you flew for Southwest, you would go everywhere. It's incredible. Go ahead.
And I think the final question is, do you get free flights?
Yes, yes, I do. I can fly. My wife and I both have free flights. We can fly anywhere on Southwest Airlines free of charge, and and also I can fly on other airlines at a big discount. So that's one of the big advantages to being an airline pilot. While you're actively flying, I can ride in the cockpit, so I don't even have to have a seat. If there's no seats up, then I can go up front and sit with the pilots, and you can travel all over the country. In fact, all over the world. Any more questions for anybody? Okay, I got a
We have one
couple.
more. We have
Okay,
one
go
more. Hold
ahead.
on one second. Hold on one
You
second.
bet.
The question is, out of all the jobs that you've had, which one was the most difficult?
Oh, the most difficult. There you go. I think early on, I spent a winter in North Dakota flying the Hughes 500, looking for oil exploration. I was using a sling load, which is a line under the helicopter. I was carrying dynamite and stuff like that and delivering it to the guys on the ground. That was a very difficult and cold winter. That was by far the most difficult job I ever had.
Those were some great questions, you guys. Thank you.
Yes, they were. Excellent questions.
Thank you so much, Mr. Crider. We appreciate your visit this morning. You have a link, an email with your second session.
I do, yes.
So you are all set. Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr.
Thank
Amaya's
you.
class. You guys are
Thank
really
you,
good.
guys. See you later. Guys,
Thank
be
you.
pilots. See you. Bye-bye.
Hello, Miss Arambula. We can't hear you. Are you muted?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay.
Hi. Are you detective in Contro?
Not yet. Pretty
Okay.
soon I'm going to become a detective.
So we call you officer in Contro?
Officer. Yes.
Okay. Well, good morning. This is Mr. Amaya's fifth grade class. This is Officer in Contro. I'm going to let her introduce, tell you more about herself. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm going to show you a little presentation and then I'll come back at the end. The other one went a little long, so I'm going to make it go a little bit faster. So then we okay. Oops. Okay, here we go. Okay, so my name is Officer Maribel Baruman in Contro, or just Officer in Contro. I want to talk to you guys about how to become a police officer and then also my journey to become a police officer. I'm going to go through these slides a little bit faster because on the last class, I didn't have a chance to do all of them. First thing you're going to do when you want to become a police officer is you have to take an exam. The exam is going to consist of, they're going to ask you a general question about yourself, okay? You write an essay and they're going to grade that essay. You have to be 20 and a half to start the application. You have to be a U.S. citizen or a permanent resident, have a high school diploma or a GED, have a driver's license that's valid, be in good physical and mental health, very important. You can't have a serious criminal history. It says no criminal history, but laws have changed. So there's things that now are reviewed differently. And our academy is 6 months long. When you're in the academy, you're going to have a lot of physical requirements. You have to be very strong and have endurance. Endurance means you have to be able to do something for an extended amount of time. They're going to show you how to grapple, how to wrestle with one person, with two persons, maybe even three persons. Sometimes if you're a very strong person, they're going to have you wrestle two people at the same time. Let's see. You're going to have to be able to run a 100-yard obstacle course. This is a body drag. He weighs 165 pounds. You have to be able to drag him from one point to another. You have to be able to jump over a chain link fence and a solid wall. Doesn't matter how tall you are, you have to find a way to get over that wall. First, they want you to get over it by yourself. Second, it could be teamwork, but that's not always possible in the field, okay? We have a lot of academics that we learn, you know, what's the proper way to handcuff someone? What's the booking procedure? What do you need to do? The medical screening, how to conduct an investigation. Oh, sorry about that. How to conduct an investigation. Verbal communications. This is our rover. You have to be able to speak clearly and also listen. Sometimes you have the RTO, the radio transmission operator, talking at the same time as another officer who may be asking for help. You have to learn how to listen and hear what's important. Report writing, very important. You got to make sure that you're writing reports that make sense using good grammar. That's why English is so important in school. We have a lot of tools training. We say tools because some tools are non-lethal, which means they will not cause death. We have lethal tools, which will most likely cause death. We have a lot of rules on our department, a lot of policies that not only protect the community, but protect us as well. Actually, LAPD has the most policies and procedures than any other department in the country. This is our taser. You could see the wires coming through. This is our OC spray. This with the green stalk is our bean bag. We have different types of belts. Our belt is called a Sam Brown. Here you have an instructor showing a recruit how to properly hold a firearm. It's very important that you hold it correctly because it can fly out of your hands. There's proper hand technique. It's proper way to hold your upper body, proper way to hold your legs to make sure you're at a steady stance. Here you see these instructors demonstrating how to properly unholster and present their firearm. Has to be done correctly. You got to make sure you don't cover your partner who's also on the line. You don't cover your own hand. You don't have an accidental discharge. This is my favorite part of the academy was driving. I thought I was a really good driver in my own car. It's very different to drive a police car. Here, this is a wet, it's called a skid pad. They wet the pad and they make you fishtail so at the back of your car slides because they're going to show you how to properly control your steering wheel, turn into the skid so you can gain control of your car and your rear tires. This down here, see there's 3 tri-lights, 1, 2, 3. You start in the middle from a distance. You have to reach up to a certain speed, and at the last minute, they'll give you the green light. You have to be able to maneuver your car safely into the right lane without knocking the cones down. Here, you could see we're practicing, and we practice with old black and white shops that are pretty beat up. This car is doing what we call a pit maneuver, where they clip the back end of the suspect's car, and we spin them out, and then we block them in. Down here, they're showing how to do a proper traffic stop. Up here, you see these are all the recruits with their helmets on, and this is the instructor. So an instructor will always demonstrate to you how to properly do something before they allow you to go behind the wheel. Who here knows how to drive already? Should be no one. Can you guys hear me?
They can hear you. Mr. Amaya has it muted though.
Oh, okay, here we
But
go.
there are a few drivers I see in your class, Mr. Amaya.
Okay, next we're going to learn about tactics. So how to properly patrol in your car. What, patrol techniques, drive with your windows down, be able to listen with one ear to the radio in your car and the other ear to noise outside, what's happening. How do you respond to crimes in progress? You have what information is available. How do you do building searches? How is the building set up? How many entrances? How many exits? How to stop a vehicle? What's the proper way to position your car so you not only protect yourself from oncoming traffic, but also if the driver is to open their door, they're not going to get hit by another car. We talk about our shooting policy. Every police department has their own shooting policy. Our policy, our major point is reverence for human life. No matter what we do, we are not out there trying to kill anybody. What we're trying to do is stop a threat. And unfortunately, sometimes if the threat is to a level that the only way to stop that is to unfortunately take someone's life, sometimes we need to do that. And we have a lot of policies in place for that because it's not an easy decision to make ever. Let's see, we study a ton of law. Let me see. From California penal codes to municipal codes, which are city ordinances. We're under state and federal law. So a lot of things that people say, oh, well, this is legalized. For example, marijuana is legalized statewide, but federally it's not. Welfare and institution codes, those are codes that apply to children. We study about crimes against children, crimes against the elderly, traffic laws, things like that. We do a lot of human relations training, not just cultural sensitivity training, but also just awareness. A lot of things we can learn from our partner. I'm Mexican. I've worked with partners who are white, Asian, African American, Indian. I had a partner from Israel, and it's amazing what we learn from different cultures. Whether things are traditional, things are, what is the word I'm looking for? I can't think of the word, but I'll give you an example of that. I had a radio call of a man with a machete, waving his machete around in a neighborhood. 415 man. 415 means he's a danger to the community. So we show up. My partner happened to be a Caucasian male, a white officer. Immediately when we get there, boom, he takes the shotgun out. He's ready to go. I say, hey, hold on. The suspect that was named in the call was a male Hispanic, an older Hispanic guy. As soon as I saw him, I knew what he was doing. He did have a machete in his hand. He was cutting down aloe vera. A lot of students who are Mexican in the class will know that our mothers and our grandmothers use aloe vera to treat cuts or burns, things like that. He was not aware of that. All he saw was a man swinging a machete. But as soon as I saw where he was standing, I realized that what he was doing was using the machete to cut down aloe vera that happened to be growing wild on the sidewalk. So we were able to, talk to him and say, sir, you can't do that. And he's like, oh, but it doesn't belong to anyone. So we had to educate him on the law that even though it doesn't belong to anyone individually, it is private property. Oh, I think my son just got home. It is a public property. I'm sorry. So I had to educate my partner on that. Let's see. We have a lot of elder abuse classes, hate crimes, missing persons. We learn about domestic violence. It's not just between a husband and wife. It could be between a parent and a child. It could be between an ex-boyfriend and an ex-girlfriend. There's a lot of classes. Let's see here. And then you graduate. So you graduate, and then what happens? You have to work for a whole year of probation. So you did 6 months of the academy. Now on top of that, you're going to do a whole year of probation. You get to work with a lot of different training officers. I've been a training officer for several years, and they teach you everything from how to drive properly, how to do your reports, how to respond to calls, how to do interviews of children, adults, people who are hurt or injured. Sometimes you have to do an interview at the hospital. You're going to go to court for either traffic citations or arrest reports that you wrote. You could see here, this officer is in a suit, but he's testifying in court. We may have to deal with protests right here, or parades. You have to learn how to keep the peace. And one thing down here, during probation, continue learning, always continue learning. And now you finish your probation. So what happens after probation? You get to decide, what do I want to do? What did I really enjoy during probation? You know, when I handled that call of that missing child, I really enjoyed that. I really felt like I really helped the community. So maybe you want to work with kids. Maybe you decide, you know what? I remember when that canine officer came to my call, I thought it was so cool that he had a dog. I want to work with dogs, or I want to ride horses. You know what? I speak a different language. Maybe I'll get an assignment where I can use my Spanish or my Korean or my Mandarin or whatever other language. Can you drive other vehicles? We have a ton of other cars in our department. I'll show you a different slide. And then this is an important one here. Do you like to teach? We actually have police officers who are instructors. Everybody who runs our academy, from the shooting firearms to driving to tactics to whatever it may be, those are all sworn officers who've now decided to become instructors. So if that's something that you enjoy, you can decide to become an instructor. But again, always keep learning, always keep reading, keep training. Here's some of the cars that we drive. So if you work traffic division, you could be driving a motorcycle. If you work the beach, I worked the beach before, and I got to drive around in the sand on a quad. Does anybody here go camping? Does anybody know how to drive either a dirt bike or a quad? Oh, you guys might be muted. Let's see. If you work the harbor division, you might be driving around on a boat. If you work a patrol division, you could be driving a Ford Interceptor or a Ford Explorer. If you're assigned to community relations or special events, you could be driving one of these BMW i3s. If you work SWAT, Metro, Bomb Squad, you could be driving one of these. Looks like a fire engine. Sometimes when we do protests and people get arrested, you could be driving this. Looks like a regular school bus, but we painted it to look like an LAPD bus. Let's see. And here's some of the specialized training that we offer LAPD. You can learn how to fly a helicopter. There's always two people in a helicopter, the pilot and the observer. The pilot, all they do is drive the helicopter, fly the helicopter. The observer is the one with the binoculars. He's the one who's giving out instructions. So when you see a helicopter over your house over a call, the pilot is just driving it. The observer is the one who's telling the officers below, this is where he's running. This is what I see. Be careful, traffic up ahead. These are our specialized vehicles. These guys look like they're SWAT. This is our mounted unit. So fun. My husband actually was part of the LAPD mounted unit. He said it was one of the best assignments he ever had. You can work canine, and we have several dogs. We have dogs that look for people, dogs that look for guns, dogs that look for drugs, dogs that look for explosives. The only thing we do not have are dogs that look for people who are deceased. For that, the sheriffs let us borrow their bloodhounds. And look what I found online. It looks like Kornblum School has Playground Peace Patrol. Do you guys still have that? That's a very good beginning. And look, you can become one of our explorers. So for this presentation, I wanted to leave you with that and remind you guys to be kind to each other. Always be aware of what's going on around you. And sometimes there's going to come a moment where you need to be brave. So you need to make that decision to be brave. And please, please be safe. Okay? And before I take your questions, I'm going to show you my other presentation about who I am, because I ran out of time on the other one, so I want to make sure I do it really quick. I was born in 1971. I'll be 51 this summer. I grew up in Los Angeles. And for those of you who didn't know, Mrs. Marisela Anderson and I went to high school together. We're actually high school classmates. I attended Santa Monica Community College. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I thought about being a police officer. My parents said absolutely not, because I was the only daughter. I had two younger brothers. They're very old-fashioned. So I went ahead and completed my AA degree in liberal arts at Santa Monica Community College. And then I said, well, now what? I still don't know what I want to do. I worked at UCLA for 8.5 years. And this is where I started to shape, where I really said, you know what? I need to do what I feel in my heart I want to do. So during my time at UCLA, I ran a summer youth program. It was called SYETP, Summer Youth Training and Employment Program, where we brought kids from other cities onto the UCLA campus, and we helped them learn how to fill out a job application, learn telephone etiquette, learn how to properly wear office attire that was appropriate for work, learn communication skills, you could be working in a nursing station one day, you could be working in an office another day, you could be working at the gym another day. We would rotate them around to give them the experience that they may not be getting in their community. So after running that program in 1998, I decided to become a police officer. I was 27 and my parents were not happy. So I didn't tell them as I was going through the process. My mom was very nervous. So even on the day that I graduated from the academy, from everything, got my badge, sworn in, she said, if you decide you can't make it, it's okay, we'll help you. And I said, Mom, it's too late. I already made it. And I wanted to show you some of the statistics right here where it says academy class graduation. On the very first day of class, we had 113 people. By the end of the day, we had 111 people. So 2 people decided, you know what, this is not for me. 6 months later, when we graduated, only 57 out of those 111 recruits, only 57 of us graduated. And out of those 57, only 8 were women. So I thought it was a really big deal that I graduated. I was really proud of myself. When I graduated, I did my probation in 77th Division. And this is where I learned.
Wait, Maribel,
Yes.
we can't see what you're showing. We're
Oh, you
seeing the be kind, be aware, be brave.
Oh, wait.
So there you go.
You see? Oh, I'm so sorry. I thought you could see this one. Okay. So like I was saying, so we had 113 the first day. By the end of the day, 111. We graduated 57 and only 8 were women. This is where I realized, you know what, this is a job for me. I enjoyed working in the community. I enjoyed every day being different. You dealing with, maybe one day is a really good day. Maybe you feel like you made a difference. And the next day you're like, man, I wish I could have done more, you know? And this was my career path. I did my probation in 77th. I went to Transit Bus Division after that, where I worked on the Metro and Dash bus lines. We literally rode the buses. We handled crime all around the bus, the whole bus route, whether it was on the bench, whether it was on the curb, whether it was on the bus. Then I got to work Ghost. That's the Graffiti Habitual Offender Suppression Team. I know that's long. That's why we call it Ghost. I basically pretended to be a tagger. So my partner and I would pretend to be boyfriend and girlfriend, and we would head out to the tagger yards and we would catch taggers, because at that time they were using a lot of acid. They're not only permanently damaged property, but a lot of these kids were burning their hands because they just thought it was cool to write their name up on a wall, not realizing how toxic the chemicals were, and they were ending up in the hospital. So we were trying to prevent that from happening. I worked Central Division. I worked Patrol, Skid Row. I'm sure you guys have seen Skid Row on TV. I used to do a footbeat there. So my partner and I would walk around in uniform, talk to the homeless people. We worked the Fashion District as well. Then I went to Pacific Division, where I worked the beach. I also did homeless outreach there. Then I went to Detective Bureau, became a detective trainee. I had the opportunity to work a mental evaluation unit. That's where I work with the clinician. So it's a sworn officer and somebody who works in the medical field. It could be a social worker, an ER nurse, a clinician, a psychologist. It could be anything. And we handle calls that involve persons suffering from a mental illness. After that, I went to Gang and Narcotics Division. This was one of my favorite assignments. I worked Fugitive Warrant Section, where I would look for people who did not go to court, and now we issued an arrest warrant for them. So I would go on my computer, and this was before social media, so it would be much easier to find people now, but I would go on my computer, I'd find out where they worked, where their last job was, where they live, where their parents live, do they have kids, and I would try to find them. A lot of times we would find them out of state. So a lot of people don't know that LAPD actually has their own airplane. So a lot of times the LAPD plane would fly us out of state. We go pick up our arrestee and we bring them back home and we put them in jail. Or sometimes we would fly a commercial flight. So when that happens, I did all my research. I think I found them. So I call the police agency. Let's say it's in Arizona. I call them and say, hey, I'm looking for this person. I think I know where they are. Can you go check for me? They go, yes, we got them. Okay, they hold them for me. I do all the paperwork. I fly out. I pick them up. I bring them back on a plane, and I put them in jail here. I also worked major crimes. Major crimes, I was a terrorism liaison officer. I did a lot of training for the community and for the police department on terrorism throughout the nation. Currently, you see my assignment here. I am currently the Assistant Bureau Vice Coordinator. I know times are different now and kids are a lot more aware of what goes on than when I was a kid. I deal with prostitution, human trafficking, also labor trafficking. That's people who are being held like slave labor, basically. That's what I do right now. I deal with a lot of sex crimes. Let's see. But I want to tell you who I am. These are my parents, who are very traditional, as you can see. My dad still rides every day. And they were said, no way, my daughter's not going to be a police officer. But this is my family. This is my daughter, Mila, who is a cheerleader, a wrestler, and a softball player. This is my son, Valentin, who played football and soccer. Right now, he's attending classes at Pasadena Community College. Here he is when he got his driver's license. This is one of my grandsons, Liam. This is my husband and my daughter when she had her 8th grade promotion. These are my stepsons, Rob and Sean. Our grandkids, Zyler, Liam, Aiden. And then, one of my slides is a little warped. Like I said, I do have family in law enforcement, but I am first generation. So I get to start that tradition in my family. I mean, who knows? Maybe one of my children will decide to go into law enforcement. This is my husband, John Incontro. He actually retired from LAPD after 34 years, and he's now the chief of police for San Marino. Here he is with my son after a football game. This is my stepson, Rob. He's with LAPD. This is one of my daughter-in-laws, Mary. She works for Manhattan Beach PD as a jail custody officer. This is my grandson, Liam, who loves everything police. So who knows, maybe one day he'll be a police officer. These are all the different uniforms that I've worn. This is me when I graduated from the academy, me in patrol. Here's me with my stepson. I ran into him at a protest. Actually, I'm incorrect. This is Dodgers opening day. When I've worked human trafficking, sometimes we have to go out there and pretend that work undercover and pretend that we're somebody we're not. And this is me now working a detective assignment. And one thing I wanted to stress to your class is that officers are just like you. Always feel comfortable approaching an officer to say hi. Of course, depends on the situation, what's happening, but I just wanted you to know that we're just like you. We have family, we have children. This is my daughter playing softball. This is my husband and I watching her play softball at 6 a.m. when it was, I think it was 27 degrees, something ridiculous. It was freezing. Sometimes I'm just the wife. This is my husband at work, myself and my daughter attending an event. My husband and I going to dinner. My daughter and I doing a mud run to support cancer research. Here's my husband and I at a concert. And of course, because we're in law enforcement, we do a lot of events to support law enforcement and to support officers who've been hurt on the job or unfortunately even died. And these are our pets, Stella and Mouse, and our dogs, Sophie and Brownie. And that's it. That's who I am. And I hope we still have a minute or so for some questions from you.
Definitely.
Hi, how are you? Thank you for being here. Just give me a quick second so I can get the questions from our students.
That was really good, Officer Encontro.
Thank you.
We're not in a rush this time, so it's okay.
Oh, okay.
Questions.
Hi, the first question is, what was your most serious crime that you were able to stop or help assist?
Okay, one of my most serious crimes was I got a phone call from a gentleman who was here from El Salvador visiting his sister, and his sister had 2 young children and was pregnant with another child. And he said that his sister was not treating his nephews properly, and he had to return to El Salvador, and he was really worried for their safety. So my partner and I went to her house to check on the children, and it broke my heart. This little boy had swollen hands from covering himself when his mom would hit him. They were so swollen, his head was full of scabs, but this little boy would not tell us that his mom hit him because he loved his mom. It was very heartbreaking because he didn't want to get his mom in trouble, but we knew that we had to protect that little boy. And so we told the mom we had to remove the children from her house. She was so upset. The little boy was crying. The little boy was 4 and his younger brother was 2. So the 4-year-old, he would tell us, I fell down. Oh, I fell off my bike. Oh, I tripped. He had every excuse except the truth, but we already knew the truth because the uncle had told us that he'd seen it. He's like, I just cannot, I can't go home and leave my nephews like this. So that was one of the toughest calls because, like I said, I wanted to adopt every child that I ran into that was hurt. And at the time, I was not married. I didn't have any children of my own. And if I would have, I probably would have 20 kids right now. But that was really heartbreaking to see how much this little boy was telling us how great his mom was when we knew that that was not the case and we had to remove him. And actually, even on top of that, when she had her baby in jail, we took that child away from her too.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. Oh, that hurt. I'm sorry.
That was rough.
Yeah, I'm having trouble giving you the second question. The second question is, have you sustained any injuries while being an officer?
I have actually. Well, we would consider it wear and tear. You know, just like you do maintenance on your car, you have to do maintenance on your body. So last year, I got a complete right hip replacement. So I have a titanium hip and socket on my right leg. I got back fusion surgery. So I have 2 plates and 6 screws in my back. And then on my right foot, I tore my Achilles tendon from just running, jumping, sudden stopping. It's just our bodies we're rough on our bodies at work. And it's funny, when I went to the doctor, he said, man, police officers and firemen, you guys always wait till the last minute until you feel like you're dying to come. And it's true because we love our job and we don't want to stop working. And sometimes we need to stop working and take care of our bodies. So yeah, I've had to get a new hip, a new back, and a new foot.
Wow. Another question is, how does it feel when you do so much for the community, but you can't really brag or tell the world what you do? Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
You know what? It's like I said, it takes a certain kind of person to do this job. Just like I'm sure it takes a certain kind of person to be a teacher. It's not easy, but you do it because you like it. You do it because the feeling that the feeling that I get is enough reward for me. So if I have an interaction with someone and I feel like I did the best job that I can do, it doesn't have to be on TV. It doesn't have to be public. But you know what makes me feel great? When I run into that victim or that person a week later, a month later, and they're like, "Hey, officer, now I left that person with a positive experience with the police." That makes me feel good to put it out there that, you know, there's good officers out there. And I think the best way to do that is treat people right, and they remember that. You know, what did our parents always tell us? First impressions are so important. I do agree with that tremendously.
Thank you. And the last question is, could you repeat about how long did it take you from the time you started till you actually were sworn in as a police officer?
It takes 6 months. So the academy is 24 weeks, 6 months. You get sworn in at your graduation, you get your badge, and then after that, you do a full year of probation with multiple training officers, multiple watches working, day watch, night watch, middle of the day, different assignments. But the actual academy is 24 weeks.
I think we have one more. Hold on one second, please. Yes. The last question we have is, have you had, what's your most crazy experience?
One of my craziest experiences is hearing bullets fly by my face. That's a crazy experience. As police officers, we're trained when something is happening, when people are running this way, we're running that way. We're running towards the emergency. We're running towards the situation. And we did have an incident where a former tenant from an apartment building was evicted. He wasn't kicked out, he was evicted properly, but he was upset. So he came back and he was threatening the manager. So he decided, he broke the lock, went into the apartment that he was previously renting and said he wasn't coming out. The apartment was on top. His apartment happened to be on top of the parking area garage. So as we're approaching, and this is why it's so important to listen to the radio. This is why it's so important to know your neighborhood, to know the layout of everything. As we were approaching, I was young. I was still on probation. And I heard it, and it sounds just like that. And I was like, my God, what was that? We were getting shot at. And that's when I realized how close I was to being shot. And it's a reality check, because you can get hurt. You can lose your life in this job. So you have to be sure that it's something that you want to do. And 25 years later, I wouldn't change it.
That was a good question. All right.
Have the last one is, have you ever had any experiencing with drug trafficking?
Drug trafficking? No, I that was not a field that I was interested in. I was more interested in human trafficking, because now human trafficking is actually starting to make more money than drug trafficking, and it's a very scary crime and situation, because we have a lot of young ladies and boys who are getting trafficked. And unfortunately, a lot of the people that young boys and girls meet online are not nice people, and they don't realize the dangers that they can put themselves in. So when I had an opportunity to kind of steer my career in a direction, I went towards vice and human trafficking. And that's why I've worked in plain clothes for so long. I love working out of uniform. I get to hide among everybody else, and nobody knows that you're a police officer. It's great.
Thank you so very much for sharing with us. My kids are just like glued to the screen, and they're just listening to everything you're saying. Thank you for everything that you've done for us and what you continue to do for us.
Oh, thank you guys.
Thank you, Mr. Amaya's class. You guys were amazing. You guys did really good this morning. Thank you, Mr. Amaya, for fielding questions and being ready. Thank you, Officer and Contro. We appreciate you so much.
Thank you guys. Have a good week.
Thank you. See you later.
Bye.
Wow, that was awesome. Thank you. So we do another one tomorrow?
Yes. So tomorrow, same time, 9 to 10, you are with Mr. Amaya. Miss Stewart is with you. And you're going to see a special effects person and a plumber. And then Thursday, you're seeing an editor for UFC and a civilian staff government employee.
How
It's
cool.
so top secret. We can't even record that one. So it's going to be Miss Pua. Yeah, remind her not to record that one.
Okay.
All right. Good job, you guys. It was nice to see everybody today. I'll see you guys around campus. Have a good day.
Thank you. Okay, can you guys hang that up right there, please?